before I move on to more psychological aspects of this and philosophies and ways to combat what's going on, I'd really like to review and define a lot of things just so I won't have to look back on too many things. One of those things being the notification list. And that's simply put very similar to a watch list, possibly exactly like a watch list. I don't know what you may or may not be potentially labeled as on one, but it will notify people without you knowing that you are around, and you could potentially be labeled something that you're not. I don't know exactly how it works. I know it's linked to fusion centers, which are collecting data on human behavior and psychology studies. I'm trying to be less emotional and more factual, to the point about things. Just get kind of spaced out. I guess I'm back. I'm still fucking doing this. Took a little break, and man, I got to a point where I felt pretty goddamn good. I was more leaning towards hoping I would get out of the woods if I was in them, but I ain't in no fucking woods, man. This is the real world, dude. This shit is really happening. But as I said, man, I got to a point I was feeling pretty fucking good, and it was actually that plateau that I always strived for and remembered and couldn't do anything but admire and wonder how the fuck I got there. I got there, you know, and I'm real close to it. I feel myself slipping back down, you know what I mean? So I figured I'd cut this motherfucker on for a little while and just talk a little shit before I fuck around and start doing it around people, because I guarantee you nobody's trying to hear that shit. That's a big reason why I don't get on the internet. I listened back to a few recordings before I opened this one up, and just for the hell of it, I want to take another shot at mimicry. And it affects your development of progress in your personal life more than you would ever anticipate, because it affects, as I said, it affects your ability to identify with yourself. Therefore, you can't note your level of progress with your development of character strengthening, because you're always gonna, at least on a subconscious level, you're gonna associate what you do with what they do, and you'll just go in this cycle of the same level of development because you keep thinking you're being influenced by everyone else, which you are naturally, but that's also what causes this constant cycle, is because they're artificially acting a certain way, and it just so happens that that way is mimicking your lifestyle. So it's just to keep you kind of in limbo, I think. Just like all of it, it's to lead you to nowhere, and anytime you get somewhere, they got some kind of shit to prevent it. And then when you get what you want, they make you just miserable to the point, or they try to make you miserable to the point where it's like you're not happy with what you have anyway. Like, you work so hard for something, and they work so hard to prevent you from getting it, that when you get it, they're like, okay, fuck it, we'll just make them not appreciate it anymore, try to take it away, or whatever the fuck is going on. I mean, it's just a damn shame that there is no way to word it to where it doesn't sound like it's a delusion. It just sounds like a bunch of bullshit. It really fucking does, man. It just doesn't sound real. It doesn't seem real half the fucking time. I want to take a personal note to continue looking into Stoicism again. I looked into Stoicism some years back, and it is closely correlated with my behavior, my outlook, my philosophy, very closely knitted. Slightly different, I'd say, but it really just depends on the opinion of it more than what it actually is. But I mean, opinion, you got to sprinkle that in, especially if it's in relation to some sort of philosophy or perspective on life. I would have to say the most unique thing about this whole situation is how well I understood the entire thing with absolutely no labels involved in it. No name of it, no tangible identification to portray to anyone. It's really the first thing I can honestly say I understood before I knew what it was that was actually really complex. I've found a few things here and there, like vocabulary words, for example, like, oh, that's what you call that. Yeah, I know what that is. I've seen that, you know. But this is way different, dude. This is like my whole lifestyle and the way I operated and the way things operated around me. There's a lot of validation involved that I feel saved me from me being my even worse of an enemy to myself. It really trips me out how I was able to describe everything years ago before I had all the labels. I was able to describe. It was like defining words with no term in front of them. You know what I mean? Just definitions. And then getting the words later. But instead it was like the name of organizations and programs and things like that. And how a lot of the ways I developed myself and decided to operate and perceive things seemed so detrimental on the face of it and the front of it, but I always knew in my heart it was the way to go. And lo and behold, looking back, I see why, and would still be able to do so without knowing what I know now. I mean, it really is a trip, because even without the research, there was still a level of validation before that was just like, okay, I'm not crazy. That really did happen. That has happened to other people. I see it, this, that, and the other. It was like levels of validation after, more and more and more. Also some fugazi shit too that I fell for in the midst of it all. I mean, there's a lot of shit came down, man. A lot of shit got misinterpreted, manipulated, and there was times, and still it's just instilled in me now, but there was times where like intuition was the ruler of every decision I made. The vigilance was so high that I would literally have to play dumb as fuck to the point where it stuck on me. Because I was always constantly thinking nobody was buying that shit. But really just, I was looking to prove myself wrong in a cautious way. And all I got was more and more proof of what was going down. Bro, it was terrible, dude. Really fucking was, man. It got me to a real low place. Certain things are just the truth, man. And certain truths can create lies within yourself and other people too. I mean, that's the whole reason for certain things even happening and existing. You just have to combat people that don't know what's happening. Well, I'll take that back. You don't have to combat anything. It's like there has been so much shit going on around me that I have not even spoke about. I'm just slowly moving away from mentioning it, other than taking a mental note that I just have been conditioned to take. That's as far as it goes now. But everything is happening still. I see all of it. I'm just not speaking on it. I hear all of it. I'm just not speaking on it. I feel all of it. I don't want to be repetitive, and I don't want to sound fucking crazier than I already fucking am, or sound, or appear to be. But let's just focus on the facts, man. Whether I want to mention this or don't, it's just, you have to keep, if I'm doing this for therapy and progress, I need to note the level of progress. And in order to do that, you have to deal with the facts, man. What's been an illusion? What's been a delusion? What's been genuine? What's been real? What's still happening? What isn't happening anymore? Things of that fucking nature, at some point, I'm gonna have to focus on. Do I still deal with noise campaigns? Yeah. Do I still deal with drones? Yeah. Do I still deal with people on the road following me? Yes. Do I still deal with synchronicity and color coordination? Yes. I mean, do I still deal with gaslighting tactics? Yes. Mimicry? Yes. I do notice it. If anybody listening is wondering, yeah, I see it, man. I fucking see it. But please understand, I've seen it for a long fucking time. So don't take it personally, and don't think there's a lack of respect or whatever is supposed to be or whatever isn't supposed to be. Just know I'm aware that it's nothing I could do. It's not based on my behavior. It's just nothing I could fucking do to change any of it. I know that. So don't think I'm gonna get caught up trying to fucking change, you know what I'm saying? It's happening because it's happening. It's happening to everyone. I don't look down on people for not knowing it's happening either anymore. I can totally see why people wouldn't notice a lot of the shit that I notice. At one point I wouldn't have never noticed none of this shit. But one day I did, man. I didn't fucking go digging down conspiracy fucking bullshit on the internet. It never started that way for me. None of this shit started that way for me. All of this was external things happening around me that I grew accustomed to and didn't bitch about. I just assumed that people lived this way, and then realized that, you know, there is a division. Even before the research, before all that shit, I realized there was a minority of people that go through what I'm going through. Before I put all of it together, like I said, all the definitions before the words and terms and things of this nature, man, it was all the long way. I'm not a know-it-all. I don't know every fucking thing, but damn, dude, I did have to adjust to circumstances I thought were normal and then knew were abnormal. Where did it all start? Man, where did it all start? I wouldn't say where it all started, but I'll give you a starting point. How about that? One day, there was a time I was working at the cabinet shop, and I just was in this state of mind at that time where I was just having a lot of off the wall theories and conspiracies going on in my own fucking head, almost childlike in nature. I was just really just wondering about a lot of shit on a deep level, and I was making a lot of music and really ambitious. Got this house and started becoming very possessive of everything I owned. So I became even more perceptive with that new level of vigilance that I developed, and started staying up real late, noticing all the traffic things being tailed and familiar vehicles and street theater, all these things that I had to get used to and learn about without the internet, with no names and no body to explain it to me. I just took it as a personal experience and had to overcome it. Like as a kid, it would wig me the fuck out. It would blow my high. You know, it'd just do all this crazy shit. You know what I'm saying? I'd be like thinking I was tripping, and I just got older and older, and you know, started bucking it. And by the time I got my house, I was half-ass aware, and I just kind of started experimenting, maybe more than I should have. But hell, I wouldn't have learned shit otherwise. And at one time, my shit got broke in. And I don't know if this was before or after, but it was very close in proximity. It was probably before and after. I would stay up some nights and sit outside and watch things. Just sitting in the garage or on my porch or whatever, just watching shit. And I just saw a lot of shit, you know what I mean? And it wasn't like a whole load of shit. It wasn't extremely intriguing. It was just only based on the pattern recognition I had collected up to that point, and I had done the same thing in other places, and it was like, it was just really strange, you know? A lot of strange things was happening. And then after my place got broken into, I was all hyper vigilant, totally just batshit, on the verge of being like batshit crazy. I still had my wits about me because I had known about, like, I had developed a mentality of the police are trying to get me caught up in some situations. And that's, you know, basically, it was just everything I learned later was just validation. I was right about everything. Let's just put it that way. But I just looked at it through the point of view of like a rapper would look at it. You see what I'm saying? Like I was wrapped up in music and shit and just doing what I was doing, you know, and living how I was living. And it was just on some dumb shit, but on some smart shit. Like I just was being cautious. And I wasn't trying to be the man, you know. I was just trying to play it smart, get out the way, and just, you know, rapper's definitely the wrong word. I just use rap music as an outlet. And at one time as a kid, I wanted to do something with it. And every now and then I fucking toy with the idea. Ain't nothing wrong with it. I just don't think about it the same way. Other than always, I've used it as an outlet. But anyway, I really started trying to lose all these tails. That was a big mistake. That's what really fucked me off. That's the only thing I did different that I just don't do. I don't do that shit no more. But I used to try to throw these fucking tails all the time, and they would always pop back up, and it was just wigging me out back then. And there was so many scenarios I look back on, and I pat myself on the back, but I was really walking on thin ice. I almost done a lot of stupid shit that, you know, I could have did easily, and it would have changed my whole life right there in that moment. But even in the midst of all of that, I ended up speaking too much to my family. I think that's what that's not really what caused it, but it made it worse from the beginning and the middle, because like I had already told them too much, at least my mom. Like I was just too comfortable with my mom, talking too much about shit with her. And also, when I was wigging myself out about all these people following me in my head, you know, I was just tripping, you know. And I was trying to tell all my family about it because I was really concerned about it. I was worried about, you know, my family. And I've heard this same story being told, and you know, I tell them about it, and I don't feel like speaking on it too much, but everything kind of leveled out with my head or whatever, and I started getting back with this girl and stuff, and I was doing some stupid shit because the vehicle I was driving was still in my dad's name, and he took it back. So she was driving me around and shit, late to work and shit, and I got fired that evening. And 2 days later, picked me up, put me in the hospital. 10 days later, I had to stay at my mom's for a week, and then I was over here. It took me 2 months to get my strap back because my mom was just being crazy about it. Everything just continued after that, and it changed my circumstances a lot because I was really in the midst of like breaking it off with her, and then we ended up living together, and then I don't know, just things just changed a lot, naturally and unnaturally. But everything just continued, man, and it still continues. I don't let it bother me as much, clearly. So I think I take too much comfort in that, because clearly it does still affect me. I have isolated myself far too long, even when I was in a relationship with her. Like I still consider that isolation. It was just only her. You know what I'm saying? It got to the point where my whole life just changed, and now it's just me, and it's been just me for like 6 months, and I'm still coping with how I felt years ago before I got sent to that place. And it was only 10 days. Big fucking deal. I don't care. It still changed my fucking life. It changed the way people look at me. It changed a lot of shit, you know, and I rarely fucking speak about it. But what bothers me most is all the shit I have forgotten, especially before I went there. It's hard for me to remember certain things. Not important things, I'll admit that, but just a lot of things I forgot. I could remember if I tried hard enough, I hope. But it's just not that important. But I've just realized I've never sat down. As many times I've sat down and recorded myself, I've never recorded like me speaking about my experience one fucking time, story wise, from no point on the timeline. So I'm trying to move chronologically. I'm having a hard time. I still haven't worded it the way that I want to word it. Every time I try to do this, I cannot put the concept into words with this mimicry thing. It's a preventative measure in my case, I believe. I've done a lot of pattern recognition with it. Certain things that I'm gonna do, or I need to do, or I'm anxious about forgetting and trying to remind myself to do. In those three scenarios, it's like when they do those things, I'll forget to do it. I've noticed just through pattern recognition, because I don't have anything distracting me, and I'm a very analytical person, so I only have me and what happens around me to analyze. So I do pattern recognition, and it's like every time I forget something, not every time, but most times when I forget something, or especially when I forget to do something, I look back and I say, why did I forget to do that? How did I distract myself? What distracted me? What happened? What occurred beforehand? And I'll notice that a lot of the things that happen, I will see very shortly before I forget to do them, someone else doing them. And as I said in the previous recording about a level of opposition that you build up within yourself towards the program, it's like a reverse psychology thing or something. I don't know what it is. I need to look further into psychology again, because the reason I have it nailed down in my head and I can't word it, there's specific terms that I could go back to and I would be able to word it better again. I think it's NLP, and psychological manipulation tactics. And I can't find those videos, man. Like, there was these conferences being held on how to do certain things, man. It was crazy, and mimicry was a big part of it. They even got down to the specifics of when they do something with their left hand, you do something with your right hand. It's called mirroring. And then there's another one called mimicking or some shit like that. I don't know. But the bigger purpose, I truly believe, with the mimicry is for you to identify. I've said this before already, though, but it's for to identify what you do with them doing it in any way, shape, or form. Really, it's an association thing. But the overall goal of the entire program should be a glaring red sign, and that is to assassinate individualism. That's what it is. That's what it is. But when you're not a materialist and you care not about the praises of influence on others, that's what happens. And you can call it mimicry or magic, but the shit happens, man. It's supposed to take your good vibes away from you, I guess. It's to make you lose progress. Because every day you grow up and every day you change. And you can't note the progress of you changing if you see everyone doing what you do. Because if you don't notice the level of mimicry, you won't realize it. You just don't understand the level of it. In my personal situation, when you see the level of it, the frequency of it, you'll see how it will affect the progress of you and your character, man. It's crazy because it feels like you're just stuck, man. In a way, it's like, how can you make progress when you don't see? If they do it frequently enough, you won't notice it every time they do it. And every time that you don't notice that they're mimicking you, you subconsciously don't know that they are. So it has an effect on your progress of character subconsciously because you don't identify it as you. The times you don't notice it, you genuinely identify it as them. And what's even more unfortunate is if you were to identify it as much as it was truly happening, then it would drive you crazy enough to become a lunatic level narcissist to where you think everybody's copying you. So you're fucked either way. It's a double bind situation. Every single one of the tactics is to put the victim into a double bind to where it will have an effect one way or another. As I said earlier, I'm going to start wrapping up this subject of targeted individualism and problem oriented policing, community oriented policing. All of the various tactics. I'm going to try to briefly go over them and sum them up the best I can and go back to them later and redirect my focus a bit for a little while just for my health. I wanted to bring up mimicry one more time and its effect on your self-influence, especially after you break free of the illusion of power of the ego. You know, it's like when you realize how much pride truly gets in the way and you recognize it more as a weakness that can be a strength. There's several layers that you will shed over time that will clear the path of your vision more and more and more. And you'll be able to see scenarios clearer regardless of the amount of research that you do. You just won't have labels, but you'll understand the intricacies of what's going on around you. And with this mimicry, it has an effect on the influence you have on yourself that you will begin to notice when you don't let your pride and ego get in the way. And you'll see how it intricately molds society in such a way that it creates a personality where one-upmanship is the American way. And when you're not caught up in that mentality and you see it actually happen and how it's a big business, the mimicry doesn't do anything more than intrigue you or entertain you after that. You go through stages of doubting it happening until they make it blatantly obvious, along with mixing in validation of them invading your privacy and or belongings. And you see on a larger scale, all the way up to the level of who put the tactics together hundreds of years ago. You have to understand the intricacies of the effects of combining all of these tactics when you're constantly creating a level of confusion, self-doubt, and lowering self-esteem. When you're creating an environment that's constantly doing that, it decreases the likelihood of someone analyzing the reasons for what's happening around them, especially with mimicry. But when you go all the way to the level of the desired effects and purpose of these tactics, even theorizing about it, as I'm doing now, you'll take comfort in the fact that it's to make you not be able to identify with yourself. It's assimilation coerced, in other words. You have assimilation and then you have assimilation. And when I say simulation, it doesn't have to be a fucking alternate dimension or a computerized world. It doesn't have to be that. It's a simulated occurrence around you constantly. That it's to make you assimilate. This is not by chance. How are you to identify what's happening when you're in a state of confusion? They anticipate you to be confused to a level that you don't even notice certain things, much less identifying the reasons. But long story short, on the level of engineering it with certain purposes in mind, the mimicry is to make you not be able to identify the influence you have on yourself, and their failsafe is you getting caught up in seeing them copying what you do. And you're gonna constantly, if it's affecting you in a certain way, you're gonna constantly try to do something different, or at least want to be different. If you don't care, you dig a little deeper, because they continue. And then you get caught up in the illusion that, oh, I got them now. They think that I'm going to act this way, but I'm not. I got them. I got them. I got them. And eventually you realize they don't give a shit. There's got to be something more. It's to, for one thing, it's to get you caught up in not knowing who you are, in a way. Because some people are going to constantly try to change up what they're doing to combat it, or stay different, or point out that it's happening and prove it. That's a distraction within itself, but that's not the larger reason. I think the larger reason, it's difficult to put into words. You always have to account for the state of mind they anticipate you to be in, whether they may or may not know that you're in that state of mind, because the tactics are simply based around what they are supposed to be doing. That's why you will be getting caught up in the same rehashed bullshit. Certain times they keep doing the same shit over and over. So when you keep in mind the anticipated perception they feel they've created in you, the overall effect it's supposed to have is for you to think, once you've reached a level of comfortability, that you've been influenced by other people and you didn't influence them. And in a way that's true, but it's when you create a level of opposition within someone, the reverse psychology works on a subconscious level, almost like a hate for a parent will make you be them, because what you fight you become. So if you rationalize the situation with the perception they anticipate you have, with that perception, then it will neutralize your influence on yourself and make you a follower, or you will perceive yourself to be so. It's assimilation, which is not the enemy. There's nothing wrong with groups and things like that, but it's coerced with reverse psychology because of the level of opposition that's been created within you, even without the perception that they anticipate they created within you. It's a subconscious effect.